Good morning, and a very warm welcome to all of you on behalf of the entire AdTech team. I'm Shiny and I lead content for AdTech in India. We all have been missing our physical events, but that hasn't stopped us from bringing together the advertising and the marketing community. In fact, I'm beginning to like this ability to see and meet you guys more often here. And here I am today. I'm excited to bring you the first episode of the much awaited Pandemic Pivots, a 3-part web series by LinkedIn Marketing Solutions and AdTech India. Since the postponement of our physical events, much like AdTech in March and face-to-face meetings post the India lockdown, marketers have all had to rewrite their 2020 marketing plans pretty much overnight. Across industries and geographies, marketing teams have had to pivot their messaging, their go-to-market strategies, and even their product launch plans. Pandemic Pivots is our attempt to bring to you some of these exciting stories of resilience and create a platform for marketers to learn from each other and discuss how they are addressing the disruption that we are all facing in these times. Now, before I hand it over to today's moderator, who will introduce you to our speakers, I wanted to go over a few housekeeping rules. So you see a Q&A section at the bottom bar, and you can use that to share your questions with us. Our panelists will try and answer as many questions as possible towards the end of the webinar. But keep your questions coming throughout the webinar. And if you wish to address your question to a particular panelist, then you need to put their name next to the question. Also, we'd love to hear from you. So share your learnings with us at #PandemicPivots and #GrowWithLinkedIn. There will be a very short feedback form at the end of this session, and we look forward to your thoughts about this endeavor. A recording of this webinar will be sent to all the registered attendees at the end of the webinar. And you can also follow us on our LinkedIn page, that is AdTech India LinkedIn page, and keep yourself posted about the upcoming episodes. So to get this rolling now, let me welcome our session moderator, Deepa Kidur, Senior Content Marketing Consultant, LinkedIn Marketing Solutions. Welcome, Deepa.
Thank you so much, Shiny, and thanks to all of you for making time to attend this session. Honestly, in these times, I think it's become very important for marketing to manage change with agility and yet make your marketing efforts as effective as they have been. Now, marketing as a function has always been looked at as forward thinkers, agile, leading the change, and actually communicating with your customers effectively and driving their conversion. Now, with the recent changes and the dynamic environment, marketing has actually gone through some phenomenal shifts in the way we've laid out our strategy. It has been uncertain times, but I believe that marketing has done a fantastic job of managing this change as always. Now, there are some of our brands that have actually effectively managed this change and driven results and driven effectiveness better than the others, some that we can really learn from, right? Now, two of those brands that we are lucky to have on our panel today is Infoedge and upGrad. So I'd like to welcome Sumit Singh, who is the CMO of Infoedge, which is the India's largest consumer internet business that have forayed into real estate, jobs, education, and the matchmaking field. Now, who hasn't heard of Naukri.com or Shiksha.com and 99 Acres? Now, Sumit has been an instrumental person in actually creating the leadership of all of these brands in their respective fields and has created some unique brand moments for each of these brands. In her previous role, she's been the executive director of the Indus Entrepreneurs Delhi, and she's also served as the executive director of the Indian Venture Capital Association. She is also a part of the IT Advisory Council of the government. Now, with all this, you'd think she has no time, but she says that in her free time, whenever that is, she loves to cook, garden, and read. Welcome, Sumit. Thank you so much for making time to be a part of this panel. My next guest, thank you. My next guest is Rahul Karthiken, who is the digital leader, digital marketing leader for upGrad, one of the trailblazers of edutech in the country. Rahul has actually been instrumental in driving some really effective digital campaigns for upGrad that have been phenomenally successful across all their digital efforts. In his previous roles, Rahul has been with Wavemaker and Kohli.com, and he comes with 14 years of industry experience. Rahul, it's a pleasure to have you with us today, and we look forward for a great learning and interesting insights coming out of this session. Thank you, Rahul, for taking time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Now, no event, online or offline, is successful without audience interaction, right? You need the audience to interact with you. You need the audience to connect with you. So like Shiny said, keep those Q&A coming. We have a dedicated Q&A time at the end of this panel, and we will try and answer as many questions as you have. But let's start off with getting a pulse of, how have you actually managed this change, or how are you managing this change? One of the first questions that we have really is, Shiny, if you can put up the poll, what word has been most used in your marketing team meetings over the past 3 months? Deep dive, leverage, growth mindset, setting expectations, moving online. We have 20 seconds, so. What word has been most used in your marketing team meetings over the past 3 months? Deep dive, leverage, growth mindset, setting expectations, moving your efforts online. Can we see the results, please?
Is that good? I think growth mindset wins it.
Growth mindset wins it. Wow. Is that similar to what you see in your organization, Sumit and Rahul? Is that the most prevalent?
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah, so the growth mindset is, of course, is been very, very pivotal on the way we are kind of, especially at upGrad. I think in the last 18 months or so, we have been doing phenomenally, and we're pretty clear about the fact that, that's something which we don't want to compromise. But I think, yeah, the current pandemic situation has only made it more stronger for us to move into that growth mindset. Right? So that's
for us,
pretty optimistic. Yeah.
And for us, it's in different businesses, it's different terms, but I hear deep dive as the term that we're using in most businesses.
Yeah. Okay. My learning has been move everything online, right? So yeah, I mean, but yes, growth mindset, marketing, ROI, I mean, get it. This is great. Can we go on to the next poll? So the next poll basically is, what word, sorry, that's the first poll. The second poll is, how has your marketing budget been impacted by COVID? Now, this is something that I'm really, really keen to see in terms of a response from all of you. So has the marketing budget increased substantially, increased slightly? There has been absolutely no change, or it's decreased? 20 seconds again. Some beautiful comments. Yes, all of us really wish it had increased substantially, but let's see what the poll results say. as expected, uh, decreased. Uh, yeah, so the budgets,
It's,
the marketing budgets have decreased, from what they used to be, I think before this entire pandemic or the volatility hit us. Pretty similar, Sumit, Rahul?
I'll not say decreased, I'll say optimized. And well, during these times, yes, I think it's all about optimizations of spends. So yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with Rahul's comment. You do what you feel is the right thing. So we have a matchmaking business, for example, which is growing, touchwood, in spite of the pandemic. People are home and utilizing the time to look for matches. So in a business like that, it's a different scenario. So yes, optimizing it in each of the businesses, I would say.
That's great. So thank you for the audience participation. Looks like our audience is really keen, and lovely participation from all of you attendees. So if you put the two results together, growth mindset and optimization of budgets, right? Which is what marketing essentially sets out to do every time we run a campaign. With that, I hand over to you, Rahul, to actually take us through. Have you really looked at optimizing your campaigns, optimizing the budget, and yet drive, growth and interaction with your customers and consumers? Over to you, Rahul.
Sure. Thank you. Thanks, Deepa. So I think, see, even during these times, so there's one element which we've always kept in mind, which is a bit of humor. And I'm a big fan of all the animated characters, right? So especially Marvel is one of the biggest. And I keep quoting one or the other examples from Marvel to my team as well. That's one of the reasons why I'm a big fan of Iron Man, and there is a certain character which he's developed, and entire storytelling at upGrad is also moving towards that. Right? So if we could just go to the next slide. So what we want to be is a great storyteller, okay, and with the quest of being the Iron Man in the industry. Iron Man is all about moving. It's about new age technology developments, moving into the space, being the first mover as well, right? So I think it became important that we be that character. We move in. We go next. And there are three certain elements which we wanted to, which we always want to be leading at, which was inspiring. We want to be intelligent, and we want to be invincible. So sometimes you just got to run before you can walk. So at upGrad, it was all about the pace, the sheer pace that we can go. And if I look at how our previous quarter was looking at, there were a lot of new avenues which we moved in, a lot of new spaces that we moved in. We moved into performance campaigns, we moved into looking at this character, and Iron Man wants to really move into all the segment. How do we really now move in, on the second stage? So that's when the Q1 came in. Let's go to the next slide. So when we are planning for the next quarter, we got enough amount of data on for Q4, which said that I think we are pretty optimistic and scale is evident for us. So which gave us enough confidence that in Q1 we will launch big time. Right? So and when we were launching it, we were pretty keen on moving into IPL, being one of the title sponsors. So that's one way. We wanted to move into the phygital approach of the connected world. So we started moving to that space. We were looking at leveraging OTTs. We were looking at creating our own web series as well. So there were tons of these new avenues which we wanted to get. So contrary to the popular belief, I was pretty confident that we know exactly what we're doing and where we are going to move in. So, but let's go to the next slide. So, but the biggest challenge came exactly when the quarter started for us. So exactly when Q1 started, March 25th, we went back home. So, and it was all about hashtag stay home and save lives. Their entire marketing approach, we had a new set of ground realities which came in. And a lot of these realities came in through a mix of events. A lot of professionals moved to hometowns, right? So, and that became, because of that factor, we had issues in terms of connecting with them. Also, there was a low speed internet which kind of came in as well. shoot embargoes, well, all the shooting across videos, everything, all of them had to come to a halt. So there was no video production which could have been done. There was no sports, there was no IPL, there was no TV content. Last, I think the worst, I'll say one of the biggest challenges that we saw over here was a lot of our existing consumer who were moving into the funnel of making final payment, they became fence sitters, and they started asking for refund requests. So, and we also kind of looked into a social listening piece as well. There were a lot of chatter happening in terms of insecurity, job insecurity, and all of that, right? So that it kept coming in. So I think when we looked into the realities, one big opportunity which came in for us was online learning became a mainstream. Now, how do I take advantage of this? So we are still in the pivotal area. So the way we wanted to change this is, earlier when we were the Iron Man, we were all about storytelling. It became imperative for us to shift it to a completely new character who is with the people, for the people. And that's where the storytelling moved into story living. And the entire characteristics moved into being sincere, being sensitive, and being special. And we wanted to become a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man who's with the people. So, yeah, Muktas. And during this period is our entire brand storytelling. We wanted to keep it very true to that, which was lifelong learning. But what changed for us was we started humanizing the brand, started talking to our consumer more often. So we became more empathetic and more empowered. Wanted to be more authentic and fluid thinking. So, and that became very, very the need of the hour for us during these times, keeping the consumer in mind. Yeah. We'll go next. So during these times, while we were listening to our consumers, what became very important from a business decision point of view was we started launching new free courses so that people can still upskill themselves. So you don't have to move into a big decision making of picking up a diploma. Experience it, keep learning, however. We reduced the entry fees as well. But I think the most important amongst them was our own leaders, Ronnie, Bateman, Fargo, the whole co-founders. They started personally talking to the learners as well. So we started talking to them. Plus, we got a lot of category leaders also coming in, having webinars with us for our students as well. It became imperative to infuse as much confidence within our students during the need of the hour. So we really moved into that part with them. I think that was one of the biggest success. And from a communication point of view, what changed for us was we created a music anthem. I'm not sure how many people would have heard about it, but the whole objective was, can we infuse confidence in a very humorous way as well, and just make it very light about the environment, about the space that is going in. So we made Aage Ki Soch. We created a branded content, which was a lot of, in terms of upskilling led sketches. The most important was moment marketing on social media. So the moment we see any sort of conversation tapering around courses or concerns, we started putting out our posts. We started interacting more with our users as well. We started interacting with a lot of other brands within the environment. We created our own IPs as well, which is all about curating content and the way we kind of tell our story as well. So, and we saw that by doing all of this, the engagement of our user really shot up. And I think we're becoming more relevant from that standpoint. And when we concluded with all of this, I think that was one good success that we've seen in the last 2 months of us being in lockdown is, just go to the last slide. Right? So these were some of the key elements, right? So what all worked for us? This is just a list of events. We partnered with Zakir Khan, we did the entire anthem. We launched a lot of events as well. You can keep going. And these are all the list of things that we kept doing it. During this time, what happened was, we were only focusing on engagement with our user and how well are they able to relate to us. Eventually what it led was, for Spider-Man as a character, I think with great power comes great responsibility. And we wanted to ensure that learning is all about enabling them for the future. But we need to be with the consumer for now, and be with them, engage them and motivate them. So I think that's this entire storytelling which we've kind of created for in this quarter, which is pretty interesting for us. It's really giving us good returns from that point. So yeah, I think that's from my side. This short story. Yeah.
Thanks so much, Rahul. That is really inspiring and educative. Um, I think one of the biggest things that we have seen, or one of the biggest trend that we have really seen emerge out of this entire pandemic situation that we are in, is actually creating brand stories and making fans for your brand, right? Which means actually keeping your consumers in the center or at the heart of whatever campaigns that you as a brand go out with. And it is extremely critical to understand your consumers, listen to what they have to say, how is their behavior changing, considering the situation that we are in. One of the critical components of this is social listening, right? But most brands typically tend to do social listening only around an event or around a launch, right? But one thing that I have heard from when I've spoken to the both of you is that you do a constant social listening exercise of how your user behavior is changing, and even more critical since this entire pandemic has started, right? So one is the social listening and understanding, how your consumer behavior is changing. And the second thing, and the second most important thing that we have really seen is how do you go out and reach to these consumers with empathy and not look opportunistic in this environment, right? Now, both of you have stories that beautifully capture this entire journey from listening to actually connecting with your consumers with empathy and not look opportunistic. So Sumit, I'd like to just hear from you as to how Infoedge made that journey, right? How did you use your listening and thereby actually connect with your consumers in an empathetic and impactful manner?
So, Deepa, at Infoedge, we've had this culture that whether it is a campaign, whether it is a product, whatever we have built has always been built around the consumer, right? And in these times, I won't say it's more or less because this is just part of the DNA. It's something that we're always doing as marketing and product. But the good thing was that most of our teams actually started to move to home about a week before the pandemic, right? So we didn't lose much time when the lockdown happened. I won't say pandemic, I meant the lockdown. So when the lockdown happened, we were already prepared, thinking, we were seeing that, we could see some metrics going down. We knew that there is something happening. So very quickly, we actually floated a quick survey amongst our job seekers. And just in 2 days, about 55 or 56,000 of them actually responded, which is quite a big number. And what we saw and the big insight that we drew was that there was a lot of fear and anxiety. While some people, by the time we did all this, it was about the second week of the lockdown, which meant the first week of April. Some people already stated that they had left, they had been laid off. There was a large amount of people who were fearing that in the times to come, there might be a layoff. And this was right at the beginning. So nobody had actually anticipated at that time that those 3 weeks will actually, we don't know till when the situation will last. But at that time, one really did not anticipate this. So we knew that there is this fear, there's this anxiety, salary cuts, what is going to happen to my jobs, what's going to happen to my promotion, my appraisal, because in India, most of us follow the financial year, which is April to March. And this happened just right in the middle of that. So what we did was we quickly, me and my team, we quickly put our minds together and we launched something called the Step Up campaign in Naukri. I'll talk more about Naukri because it's about jobs and will be more relevant to the audience. So we launched Step Up, and Step Up was our initiative to help job seekers at this time, right? We needed to tell them that Naukri stands by you in all times. Just building on what Rahul said, the whole idea was how can we be sensitive? And how can we be there listening to them and trying to aid them in this journey? So as Step Up, we created a lot of sections. See, the top of mind thing for people who had freshers and people whose campus offers were withdrawn and people who were laid off was jobs, right? And on Naukri, we have a plethora of jobs. But what we decided through Step Up, and we can go to the next slide maybe, is that we thought that we will build in sections which will help them. So right at the beginning, right at the top, we created a live hiring tracker, because people, so these are jobs that we're getting every week, so they're getting refreshed every week and they're very current. So we kind of created resources where we could give them articles, not necessarily all written by our content team, but also aggregated and curated from the World Wide Web, which we felt will help them, and a lot of courses, because we saw that a lot of people had started upskilling, right? In our survey, about 70% job seekers said that they're going to utilize this time to upskill, which is going to help them in their career, whether it was people who were on campus or it was people who were already in their jobs. So we launched something there where we curated some courses. Again, these are not our own courses, they're curated from our partners, and we kind of surface them upfront. So this is what we launched both for the recruiter side and the job seeker side. There were different initiatives at the job seeker side and different at the recruiter side. We can move on. Yeah. So there were hiring insights. There are some tools on Step Up, like the resume tool. There are some polls that kind of keep telling people that what's kind of, what's happening at the moment, what are people feeling, so that, what is important is that you also need to know you're not alone in the journey. So when you know that there are others going through the same thing, it gives you a sense of comfort, right? We also launched a lot of things with the recruiters. So people who started marking themselves laid off, people started telling us, job seekers started telling us we're laid off. So we started, we created a section for recruiters saying this talent is immediately available, right? We also were very, very cautious in our messaging that in these times, in India, we're not very used to this term of being laid off. It's not something that happens to us every second day. However, in these times, one is being laid off not because one is not a good performer. One is being laid off because of business realities. And I thought, and we really think at Naukri that this is a very, very important point to drive across. People need to know this at both the ends. And I think while I think employers and recruiters know this already, a lot of time the job seeker, he really kind of, the morale goes down, the confidence goes down. So a lot of our messaging to the job seekers, whether it has been through notifications or emailers, has actually kept this in mind, that how do you keep the morale high for the job seekers, So those are some of the things that we're doing. We're also organizing a lot of webinars. We've already done 4 or 5 of them for the community. We kind of doing them for the recruiter community separately, for job seekers separately, where we're getting CHROs and talent heads from companies to come and speak about how they can manage their career, what they can do. And the webinars, I mean, we've got over 20,000 questions that have come from job seekers at the webinars, which one is trying to answer. So these are some of the initiatives that we've taken. And this is how messaging and strategy pivoted for us in Naukri.
That is so great. That is so fantastic. It's almost like you took this opportunity to actually drive trust in your brand, right? Because I think that is integral, right now, to actually go and create trust for your brand and be authentic in the way you go back to your consumers, to your users, so they don't feel like you kind of just leverage them for data, right? Now, going to data, I think marketing has hugely shifted to being this data-driven function, right? Yes, there is the creative side of it. Yes, there is the brand side of it. But I think a large number of marketers do a very data-driven decision when they look at campaigns and when they look at ROIs or KPIs, whatever else that we look at as marketing marketing metrics, right? And Rahul, in upGrad, I think you have, both of you have done this, but when you are actually presenting, I really looked at how you have used data to come up with some very informed decisions of how you pivot your campaigns, right? Be it the movement of your users from tier 1 to tier 2 cities, how do you reach out to them, what are the platforms you use, etc. So can you just talk us through a little bit of how you really looked at data, the continuous use of data to take informed decisions around your campaign optimizations?
So we kind of matched 2 three data sets. One was obviously social listening, but there's a constant social chatter that happens, right? So we create a word cloud around that. During these times, what we found was there's a lot of chattering happening around upskilling and free courses. So, and during these times, the free courses as a search volume also significantly grew by almost 300 to 100%. So that was a significant big jump. So I think that's one data which spoke for us. The social chatter plus when we looked at the search index as well, this was kind of going up. So it became imperative for us to kind of capture this as well, and which means it's a good offering, keeping the consumer in mind. So, and that's one of the biggest reasons why we moved into these courses as well, so that we can have an entry-level course for students to come on board. Now, the second question which came after that was, what sort of free courses are we looking into that? So, and how do we really reach out to my consumer and tell them, listen, I think we have this new startup, Upstart, which is all about free courses. So we also looked into in terms of the list of keywords which is under there and the kind of traffic that is coming from these set of keywords as well. And we saw there's a huge search volumes coming from digital marketing, Python courses. So we mapped that as well, and we went all out. So as we speak, we've launched around 20 new courses on free. When people can come, it's a 4-week course and experience the product. Right? So the next biggest element was internet speed, the internet connection, especially in tier 1, tier 2. Now to address that concern, what we did was our page speed itself, we ensured that it's pretty light and it's much more discoverable, and there is no concern for any user to drop off at any stage. So how do you make it absolutely light in that element? Now that's secondary data. So we obviously mapped the internet instability into building a product around it. So I think a lot revolved in the way we kind of mapped the data into actually executed product as well, and we're able to see that from an engagement point of view, users have been pretty happy and they've been giving very optimistic view on that front. So I think it is really working for us. But in the large scale, how do we really now make it big is where we're driving now.
Great. Now, a question to both of you, and we have about 5 minutes before we can go to the Q&A. So I'd like your inputs on this, and this is a very important question for us as marketeers, right? Because every single day we are looked at, and more so than ever before, we are looked upon for actually justifying our ROI. How are you doing on the spend that you're doing? What is the kind of ROI you're driving? And most often what happens is we end up confusing our long-term objectives with our short-term metrics and tend to stop and start most of our efforts that inadvertently affects our brands, right? So just your thoughts and on how you've been able to actually manage this change, justify your ROIs, and used your KPIs to actually improve your campaigns, right? What is your long-term approach? How has that really worked for you, in both externally as well as managing your stakeholder expectations internally?
So I can go first. So I think a lot of the short-term things or short-term goals that one does, very often, Deepa, also actually lend into that long-term vision, right? So while, say in times like this, let's just talk about what's happened right now, because as Rahul was explaining, we were all thinking Q1, there's IPL, we'd all made our plans, budgets were kept, and none of us, I think, on this globe could have ever imagined that something like this can happen, right? So you need a tactical approach. You obviously need to kind of fine tune everything. It takes time. But what has happened is your long-term vision doesn't change, right? Your KPIs might change, right? Because there's a difference, right? The vision for your brand, for example, our vision at Naukri is to, stand by the job seeker always, right? To make sure that we do a fruitful handshake between the employer and the employee, to help people find good jobs, whenever, at whatever point that they need to find it. Does that change? It doesn't, right? What are we saying? What is the brand saying at that particular point in time? Yes, it changes because of the context. A lot of things that we're doing today, Deepa, we're also discovering that this challenge has brought in wonderful opportunities, because I don't think we would have got into webinars. We used to do CR, we used to do one-to-many CHRO chats for freshers, etc., which was very different. So many new things that we're looking at and doing. We have launched so many hiring insight-based reports, which are so granular for every sector, which we've done just now. So we used to do 3 or 4 reports, but today we're looking at data as to what is a recruiter who's coming today, what skills is he looking at, etc., etc. What are people searching for? So it has also endeared into or pushed us into doing a few things that I'm sure we will actually take into the future. So KPIs change. I don't think your long-term vision for the brand or the company really changes. So that's what I would say.
I agree with Sumit. I think see, on KPIs is something which is short term, right? And it will keep fluctuating. As I said, in Q4 KPIs, as against Q1 KPIs, and now there's a world of difference, right, in terms of the way we are kind of approaching it now. But our end ROI, which is 3 years. So, I mean, if you have to kind of reach there, these short KPIs will help evolve there. I think what we need to learn from the current situation is we need to be as evolving as possible. We need to be as agile as possible. So the way we see it at upGrad is the KPIs needs to be more flexible as we go. So it need not necessarily be the case that in 2 months back, the KPIs that we're chasing, should we really hold on to that? How do we really become more flexible? Because the market dynamics demands so much to be that. So, and the consumer is changing. Right? So it's getting only more smarter. They're only getting more demanding. So your KPIs will evolve, but your end ROI is something which will be constant. You'll still go there.
Fantastic. So yes, so ROI is there for the long term, and that's how you communicate to your stakeholders, saying that the ROI doesn't change monthly. It's the KPIs that really drive how we're going to run our campaigns, understand our customer behavior, how they're changing. And therefore, the answer is that we look at our KPIs to inform how our ROI is actually going to turn out, and not kind of switch off campaigns basis the KPI and mistaking it for the ROI, right? Now, to bring it home, guys, before we go on to our audience questions, I think a critical component that has evolved evolved also is how our executive voices or leaders have gone out and spoken about how our brand is actually lending itself to the situation now. And a large component of it has also been employee advocacy, right? How our employees are actually talking about the brand and our interaction, their interaction with the brand as well. Now, how effectively, and this is something that all of us as marketers and brand custodians wish to do, but often kind of gets overlooked when we go out with our marketing strategies, right? Because we are just looking at we tend to focus a lot more on our paid portion of the campaigns. So how have you guys, and I know for a fact that both of you have leveraged this beautifully in the way you've reached out to your buyers and users. So can we just spend about 3 to 4 minutes just talking about, Rahul, the way you've used your exec voices, followed by you, Sumit, after which we go into the questions.
Yeah, I think, as I said in my presentation as well, one of the most key piece that we started doing was our co-founders really came out and they started talking to the learners directly. And, because the need of the hour, when we kind of started talking to all of them, was there was a bit of skepticism, there was a bit of insecurity, there was a lot of concerns, and they would need a lot of hand holding. And that was the right time for our leaders to really stand up and interact with them in person. So I think from that standpoint, Goni, Frank, Falgun, all of them have been doing a commendable job in terms of being at it. Every week there is a personal interaction with all the prospective learners. And it becomes important, as I said in our presentation, we want to be as sincere as possible. We want to be as committed as possible. So we want to be as relevant as possible. Right? So, and we don't want to be calling ourselves as being a brand which is taking this opportunity and leveraging out of it. That's not what we want. So we want to really be with them, because it's all about upskilling. And if it helps evolve your career growth, we are there with you. So from a leadership point of view, I think that's been commendable, and everybody is putting their heart out. Now, what it has helped internally is, as a category, EdTech is right now on the optimistic side of the business. So, by all good grace as well. So, in terms of the traffic numbers, all of it is pretty good. Now, the entire employee sentiments because of that is pretty optimistic, keeping all spaces that a lot of brands are kind of moving. We want to be really as optimistic as possible for our internal stakeholders, and it became important to kind of communicate that to our employees. And what we've realized is it has led to a sort of a loyalty for the brand because of that. So, just to kind of reiterate, I think we've not really spoke about any letting go of people as well. I think we're pretty much strong. We know that we are going to grow in this space. We are pretty confident of that, and that comes out in the way on your mind speaks as well. So there is no doubt about it. I think that's one thing which has led to a lot of own internal stakeholders now really standing up for the brand, and they know for a fact that I think if you're able to really pivot through this moment, we'll go into the right place. We'll go into the right stage of life as well. So I think from that standpoint, there's just a lot of optimism, and everybody's working together as a team and really working and driving towards it. So I think it's been very good. It's been a healthy space that we are at, and we want to be very clear that we want to be at that space itself. And it eventually will help us to kind of create more loyalty around the brand, and that's the space I think any legendary brand would want to be.
Yeah. Sumit, your thoughts?
I would just say exactly what Rahul explained to us about the upGrad leadership is something that our business leaders have been also doing. Because I think in these times, while we as marketers and as businesses need to show all our stakeholders that we care, your employees are the most important, right? And just speaking on, I was telling you how job seekers were feeling all this fear and anxiety. And all of us who are in jobs also could kind of go through something like that. And so the whole deep connects with skip levels, taking out time and actually talking to people who maybe in the ordinary course of time, a lot of the leadership would have not even engaged with, going down to really the frontline people and talking to them, assuring everyone that so our businesses are impacted. Our revenues are impacted. We are not on that side where things are growing. But in spite of that, assuring everybody that your job will stay, and there are people who we have operation staff on, who do field work. They verify properties, and in a lockdown, what do you do? So people in product design, marketing, we can all work from home very, very effectively, be more productive. But there are certain functions that actually can't do stuff from, home. But to kind of make them feel safe, and to tell them we care and we understand, I think is very important. And what has also been very wonderful is that, while we were allowed to actually open maybe a month ago, because we were allowed by the government with 33% force, I think the leadership is being very, 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 very careful and caring about employees. That is it going to be easy to work with masks? Of course, I want to say that we have an online product, so it's okay to be working from home. If we had to manufacture something and we had factories, we would have had to also open, right? So we also belong to a space where we are digital. Our product is online, and so we can use it. And as Rahul said, once your employees feel that loyalty and feel that care, then Deepa, they are ambassadors for the brand in every interaction that they might have, whether it is an interaction to do with a commercial transaction, or it is an interaction to do with partners, or external stakeholders, internal stakeholders. So then everybody just becomes an advocate.
That's brilliant. Thanks for getting it home. There has been a lot of compliments for the insights that you guys have shared. The audience is really loving, this discussion, and there have been a lot of compliments. I hope you'll be able to read through them. So there are a couple of questions, and I think we will be 5 minutes over time. I just request all our attendees to stay on. I will just pick up a question that is relevant to the larger audience. There are some questions that are, that are pretty unique, which I think we will make an effort to answer later. But some that are relevant to the larger audience is, one is, how are you really managing the extra workload that is coming onto your marketing teams while they also have to balance the upheaval in their personal lives? I think this is the reality of now, right? We were also talking that we are working longer hours. How are you managing the team morale? How are you, setting those expectations? Some light on that.
So, should I go first?
Yes, we go.
Okay. So I want to actually thank my team, because really, they've really been working very, very hard and stretching. I think the first week, I'm going to make an honest confession. You always felt everybody's going to be home, everybody will be available at all hours, and many a times without thinking, you kind of just picked up the phone at maybe an 8 o'clock or a 7:30 and said, hey, could we kind of discuss this right now? But very soon you, at least for us, I think in 4 or 5 days, one realized that it's not only work. Look at the amount of housework that everybody's had to do, right? So we've been empathetic of that. We're trying to make sure that weekends are something that we're not having meetings at all on weekends, unless in the first 2-3 weeks, there were some important things we had to do. Step Up was being launched, something else was being launched, designs had to be approved. So we did have 1 or 2 short meetings. We're trying to keep that. We're trying to be there. I think the most important, and we're not trying to do a huddle at 9:30 in the morning to say, hey, is everybody out of their bed and switch on your videos, you can't be in your pajamas. I think the other thing is, work is very motivating. At least for us, we're doing so many new things in marketing that taking up the very, very motivating. So everybody's motivated. We're trying not times. We're very cognizant of the fact that all of us are doing so much more housework. We don't have support staff now as we used to. And we're, at least me and my team, we meet sometimes and jam together. We've played some online games. We have coffee sessions where we bring our own cups of coffee and discuss what's happening at home. So it's also these informal sessions that are helping us get to know each other better. So those are some of the things that I'm doing with my team.
Yes, I think for me, I agree with Sumit on a lot of points. I think the first 10 days into the work from home was a bit chaotic. So we were kind of getting acclimatized with how do we do this whole work from home. Because before that, work from home was pretty relaxed. And so for the pandemic, the way we would call up work from home was you would have a relaxed time. You will not really be working for 8-12 hours. But a lot had changed during that time. So when we started off, it was a bit chaotic. I remember a lot of people, my team members themselves used to call me up, like, how do we really manage this? So in this chaos. But what happened during the period of time was the entire team bonding became more stronger. I think everybody started holding onto each other as much as possible. And it became important that we start communicating via a channel. Right? So I keep my Saturdays for the team, wherein there is this complete one-on-one, off the record, offline conversations. There is nothing to do with work. We talk about Formula One, we talk about books, we lose topics. I love traveling, and that people would just like to listen to my travel stories. So, okay, come, hop on. So I think that's one of the way we kind of engaging it. And honestly, I think I'm trying my best to be as much as possible. My team would still complain about some bits here and there, but that's okay. I think net, what we wanted to really make it happen was, how do we really keep this on in this environment? It's a wave. We will survive this wave. We're pretty confident about it, and we'll come out on a much, much better, on a brighter side. Right? So it really keeps the team going. Honestly, there is very less of an effort. I'll be very frank. There is very less of an effort that I do. It's more with the team itself. I think they've brought themselves up to be more stronger during these times. So I think eventually it's all about the individual to really drive this. And from that standpoint, well, yeah, commendable to the team as well, really doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, teams coming together more. I think motivation being high because you're able to give time to your family as well as attend to your work. I think those are some of the trends that we have seen evolve while we are, while we've shifted to this largely work from home environment. Um, I think this would be the last question of the panel. I know there are a lot of questions, guys. We will, respond to this on email or, however Shiny would, advise us on this. So the last question, because I think there were a couple of questions initially that has been answered in the session, so don't want to go there. But one prevalent question that I think we can all kind of take a shot at is, since the COVID situation is changing every day, initially we thought it would be normal by June. Now I guess COVID has become the new normal, right? How to tweak your strategy when you don't know how long this will last? Comments?
Yeah, so I'll go with that. So I think most important thing what we've learned over here during these times was to move into agile marketing space. So you need to be more relevant, but you need to be right there. And that's where, in one of the storytelling that I was talking about, moment marketing became very important for us. So we be more relevant with basis what's happening. So the way we are approaching it as well is, while your KPI, and that's the reason why we've kept the KPI more flexible now, is because things are changing by the month. So earlier, the situation used to evolve in a quarter or a year. It's changing by the month. In fact, even lesser than that. So a lot of trends are shifting. Now, how do we make it relevant? So you cannot have a hard, a wall garden in terms of the set rules that we have to follow this way itself. You can't. You need to. The brand has to be more flexible now. It has to be more open to change. So we've shifted our entire approach towards agile marketing. So we look for new partners. Should we go in or not? Keep constantly at that. So I think and that's something which has been a good success metric in this quarter, and we would want to kind of keep following that till life becomes normalcy.
Sumit, any thoughts?
Exactly what Rahul said. I think agility is what is the need of the hour, not only in the marketing function, but every function. And, we have the advantage of having a lot of data because we're an online company. So what we're doing is we're looking at data every day. And we're seeing, for example, now every week in May was better than the week before that. June is looking slightly better. So we're looking closely at metrics. We're looking at user behavior because that's also giving us signals and insights as to what are people doing. Are people now coming? What is happening on the job side? What is happening on applications, right? What are people wanting to hear? So I think looking at your data, driving constant insights from there. And as Rahul said, you can't really make a plan now for the next 6 months, because every 2 weeks is showing you something different. So agility is the need of the hour, and also keeping a hawk's eye on what's happening and listening. I think continue to listen because the things are changing. There are more people now today who have been laid off than they were in April, right? So there are more people today who have different kinds of anxieties and questions. So I think all that is important. So keep your eyes on what's happening and be agile because otherwise you can't replicate very quickly. And don't get too. I would also say as employees, as team members, this is a time also to become a little bold and strong. There will be some things that you might be working on, which 2 weeks later, somebody would just say, "Yaar, ye chodo abhi," because this has become far more important. We're seeing this. Don't get disheartened, because this tends to happen in times like this, because even we don't know what we should be doing in August, what the situation will be like in August. So be strong, hang in there, and just be agile because things like this will happen and one is not trying to do them on purpose, so that's what I would say.
This has been such a great discussion. I know that I have learned a lot with the way you've approached this entire pandemic situation and how you pivoted your marketing strategies and yet drove, effectiveness and, managed your stakeholder expectations and actually saw, in your case, Rahul, actually saw the uptake more than it was, while this pandemic was not around. So, as marketers, it's a very, very heartening situation for us to see that, while, this entire uncertainty drove a bit of, fear, I think, amongst all of us as to how marketing will really reach out, how will we kind of be effective. Things have really started looking up now. And I think there is a lot more demand from your consumers in terms of understanding, what are the solutions that you're providing. There is a lot of demand for upskilling. Yes, there's a lot of negative news that we hear in terms of people losing jobs, but still there are job opportunities opening up as well. Marketing budgets are stabilizing, and campaigns are coming back on. So all in all, while we started with a little uncertainty, things are only starting to look up. Yes, there's uncertainty, but there's the whole bit of agility that we need to weave in to the way we are running our campaigns. Look at how we are going to look at data to keep us, to take some very informed decisions. Keep your ROI, in view, and look at your KPIs to drive those ROIs and not the other way around. I've learned a lot. Thank you so much, Sumit, and thank you so much, Rahul. It's like been really insightful. And a huge thank you to the audience. I think you guys have been amazing. The kind of comments that I was seeing on the chat, it's been very, very motivating. And we still have a healthy number of people still online, though we've gone over by 15 minutes, which means the session has been really informative. Thanks a lot for all your time. I really appreciate it. Has been a huge learning for me. And I look forward for the next session eagerly. And I hope all of you will join us as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Sumit, Rahul, and Deepa, and the audience for staying with us through this session. This has been really good. And thank you for sharing these stories of positivity. Audience, please share your feedback with us. You like this? You want us to change something? We will be sharing the feedback form in the chat box, and also post this webinar. Once you exit, you should be able to see the feedback form. Stay tuned for our next episode of Pandemic Pivots, which will be on the 1st of July. And you can follow us on our LinkedIn page, that is the AdTech India LinkedIn page, to see updates and new speakers for the next session. Thank you so much. Signing off now. Thank you.